When you think of the best JRPGs of all time, what comes to mind? Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Star Ocean? Every one of these franchises is amazing, but there's one thing they all have in common. They're all made by Squaresoft, Enix, or both after the merger. But what if I told you that there are a plethora of amazing classic JRPGs that have nothing to do with the retro juggernauts of role-playing games? That's right, today we're jumping into 10 of the best retro JRPGs with zero connection to Squaresoft or Enix. And honestly, some of these are overlooked solely for this reason. I've been playing JRPGs for over 30 years, and some of the best are the ones I played when I was just a kid. Before I jump into the list, just to clarify, today's list will be based on retro titles. Anything from the 6th generation of gaming or earlier, so the PlayStation 2, GameCube, and classic Xbox or earlier. I will be talking about modern JRPGs at a later date, so if that's something you're interested in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and prepare yourself while we jump back in time. If there was one game that encapsulated the idea of those childhood fantasies of adventure, it would be Earthbound, my number 10 pick. Initially released in 1994 for the Super Nintendo, Earthbound is kind of a weird game. Where most JRPGs took place in a sci-fi or fantasy world, Earthbound flipped the script and took place in just your average suburban town, with cars, baseball bats, hospitals, and crazy homeless clowns. Yeah, it sounds silly, but honestly, that's one of its main draws. Earthbound is actually the second game in the Mother series, and the only one that got originally localized. I didn't actually play Earthbound until it got released on the Nintendo Classics for the Switch, but I'm glad I did play it because its quirkiness is unlike anything I've ever experienced. The setting is uniquely normal, and with its typical save the universe from an otherworldly evil and lovable characters, it just hits every notch on the JRPG belt to make it feel like a classic that everyone should love. The combat doesn't generally do much to revolutionize the genre, but it has this mechanic where if you get damaged, your health starts to roll down, and once it hits 0, your character's knocked out. However, if you happen to heal before it hits 0, you will cheat death and get another chance. It has other weird story elements where at one point you need to get past this pencil-shaped rock, and the only way to get past it is to erase it. Like literally find a giant eraser and erase that barrier. There are several more of these fourth wall breaking story beats, and it just makes the game feel incredibly charming as a result. Honestly, the best way to describe it is if you took the Goonies and transformed it into an RPG and made it 1,000 times weirder. So if you haven't given Earthbound a shot, I highly suggest you do, because it's a game that is on everyone's best RPG of all time lists for a good reason. But if Earthbound is a suburban weirdness, this next game is kind of the opposite, being a sky-high adventure on the open seas. But wait, where's the water?
Here goes!
Sailing into number 9 is Skies of Arcadia. Originally released on the Dreamcast in 2000, Skies of Arcadia was such a weird experience, but that's kind of what feeds into the enjoyment. Every kid wanted to be a pirate, and that's exactly what Skies of Arcadia is. It's a pirate's fantasy, but instead of sailing on waves, you're sailing through the fluffy clouds. I think what made me love Skies of Arcadia so much is the fact that it's got some of the best exploration in any JRPG I've ever experienced. I love being able to find islands among the clouds and explore those islands to my heart's content. The best part has to be being able to run into other sky pirates and battle them for airship supremacy. Though, I will say, I wish they were a bit faster paced. If we ever see a remaster of this, fast forward is gonna be a necessity. I have such fond memories of Skies of Arcadia, but I will go ahead and say that I didn't actually play the game on Dreamcast. I got to first experience this game on the GameCube, which, from what I understand, had some new content and fixed the crazy encounter rate. If you love the feeling of going onto a grand adventure, Skies of Arcadia will be perfect for you. It's almost like One Piece meets Final Fantasy, just without the Square Enix influence. With that being said, let's sail down from the clouds to a small little town's murder mystery with the supernatural twist.
Let's get through this!
why don't we investigate number 8 with Persona 4, originally released on the PlayStation 2 in 2008. Persona 4 was actually my very first foray into the Shin Megami Tensei universe, and I absolutely adored the game. For those of you that have been around my channel, I've mentioned that I do love a good murder mystery, and Persona 4 is all about that vibe. Sure, it kind of Scooby-Dooifies it, but honestly, that's even better as far as I'm concerned. Persona 4 absolutely nails that small-town murder mystery feeling while throwing in a few supernatural elements to round it out and make it feel unpredictable, keeping you interested without making it feel repetitive or boring. Persona 4 was actually the first time I ever played a JRPG with a life sim aspect. Most of the JRPGs I had played before were very typically enter town, find issue in town, go to dungeon, fight boss, and repeat. However, Persona 4 threw in the life sim aspects such as building friendships, maintaining a part-time job, going to school, and other teenage life things. These days, I'm kind of burnt out on school life sims, but back in 2008, when I played Persona 4, I was fresh out of school. Yeah, I'm old, laugh it out, but yeah, I was fresh out of school and I found it pretty relatable. Sure, it might not be as popular as Persona 5 these days, but at its peak, it was just as popular. And besides, you should play Persona 4 because there's a remake coming very soon, so why not experience the original or at least the golden remaster before the remake gets released? Now, Persona 4 gave us unforgettable characters, but could you imagine if those characters decided to change up gears and pilot giant medieval mechs instead to defend entire kingdoms? Now, if you're loving these picks so far, we're about to dive into some hidden gems most people might not even know exist. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. For number 7, we have Vanguard Bandits, released in 1999 for the PlayStation. This was one of the many games I was able to play because of game rental stores. I picked this one up on a whim, and not only did I get to play this amazing game, it also came with a 5-hour demo of Lunar 2. It's so hard to describe what Vanguard Bandits actually is, but if I had to, I would take Fire Emblem, cross it with Escaflowne, right down to the battle animations. Vanguard Bandits follows the story of Bastion, as he tries to reclaim his kingdom that was swiped away from his family when he was a young boy. I think one of the main reasons I really love Vanguard Bandits had to be the fact that the mechs are generally thought of to be futuristic, but the whole vibe of this game was very medieval, and being a tactical RPG with several different endings, it just offered almost infinite replayability. There's also the fact that the game was localized by Working Designs, who are infamous for their fantastic and somewhat controversial translations. The translation of Vanguard Bandits isn't as eccentric as other Working Designs games, but it's still comical at times, which keeps the game interesting. I know some people don't care for the liberties Working Designs took, but I personally will never get sick of them. Unfortunately, I don't think very many people have played Vanguard Bandits, but if you get the opportunity, I highly suggest you take a look, especially if you love strategy RPGs. Now, while Vanguard Bandits might be masterclass when it comes to strategy RPGs, it's time to jump into difficult puzzles and dreams. Now, honestly, number 6 is a dream come true, or maybe a nightmare depending how you look at it. Do you love puzzles? Well, Alundra, released in 1998 for the PlayStation, probably has some of the most difficult puzzles in any JRPG I've ever played. Well, calling it a JRPG might be a bit of a stretch. It's more of Sony's answer to Zelda, and we all know the ongoing argument of Zelda. Do you think Zelda's a JRPG? Let me know in the comments below, but let's get back to talking about Alundra. Alundra is actually super genius. It's like a darker Zelda. You play as Alundra, a dreamwalker, who enters people's nightmares in order to wake them up from an eternal sleep. The game enters some super emotional themes, despite how colorful it portrays itself. It's almost as if the developers set out to make you think you were in for a fun jaunt across a wide open world, but then at the last minute decide to change things up just to make you cry. Not just with the story beats, but also with the puzzles. I mentioned earlier that the puzzles were difficult. I don't think I've ever experienced any puzzles that were this hard and this frustrating. Not only the solutions, but how to get to the solutions. You have frustrating platforming to agonizing time limits, alongside the solutions being just hard to find. But because they're so difficult, When you do eventually solve a puzzle in a dungeon, you get this feeling of satisfaction like no other. Alundra is one of those games that sets out both to break your heart and test your brain, and that's kind of a feeling that you can't really match anywhere else. But now that you stressed out your brain, it's time to jump into a game with a battle system that just broke the general consensus of turn-based battles. What would you get if you mix Tekken with Final Fantasy IX? Well, you would get entry number 5, Legend of Legaia. Released for the PlayStation in 1998, Legend of Legaia was incredibly unique with its battle system. And at the time, I hadn't played anything like it. Whereas most JRPGs just had you selecting attacks and special attacks separately, Legend of Legaia completely changed it up by integrating the two. You would input several attacks in one turn, and if you did them in the correct order, it would result in a special attack. As someone who loves fighting games, the idea of combining different strikes into a combo attack really struck home with me, and I really enjoyed it. Legend of Legaia has a relatively typical story that won't blow your mind by any sense. It takes place in a post-apocalyptic fantasy world, with these living weapons called Seru, along with an evil mist causing issues left and right for the residents of Legaia. Honestly, the game is pretty slow, but the story and gameplay are what really sells it for me. It's a shame we don't have any ports of this game. No remasters, no remakes, not even a PlayStation Classic release. It would be so nice to have some sort of modern way to play Legend of Legaia these days. It actually did get a sequel on the PlayStation 2, but while it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, it just wasn't as good as the first game. Now that we've had this post-apocalyptic grit, why don't we flip the script and jump into something more fantasy and whimsical, complete with Disney-style musicals.
Cornet is my name and I'm a puppeteer too. With my
Alright, join me as we sing about the praises of number 4. Rhapsody, a musical adventure, originally released in 1998. This game has to be one of the most unique and strangest concepts for a JRPG I've ever played. It's honestly like if you took a 90s Disney movie and turned it into a JRPG. Before Rhapsody, a musical adventure, I had never played a JRPG that is an honest-to-goodness musical, right down to randomly breaking out into song during story sequences, and it even includes a villain melody. Sure, the game is incredibly easy, and the story seems very geared towards younger girls, as you play a puppeteer named Cornet, who travels with her little fairy Kururu as they try to save Prince Ferdinand, whom Cornet is obsessively in love with. Even with the game being as simplistic as it is, I absolutely adored every moment of it. As for the musical concept of Rhapsody, I get it, it isn't for everyone. Lots of people probably think of it as incredibly cringy. After all, remember people's reactions to Atlantis and Kingdom Hearts 2 and all that finny fun? Well, for me personally, I love musicals, so having a game that is the living embodiment of a musical JRPG was just perfect for me. Even better that it's only about 10 to 15 hours long, so it isn't a huge commitment. Now, Rhapsody did get a release on the Nintendo DS as well. I haven't played that version, so I can't recommend it, but it did go from a turn-based battle system to a strategy RPG system, and supposedly it added a bit of extra content. I will let you know, however, they did end up re-releasing the first Rhapsody for the PlayStation on the Nintendo Switch. I don't remember what game it was bundled with. I want to say Soul Nomad and the World Eaters? Somebody can correct me on that. But if you're looking for a short, cute JRPG that you can sing along with, I'm sure there's someone out there who wants to sing along to it. I would highly suggest Rhapsody. Now, Rhapsody is kind of cute and kind of cuddly, but let's abandon that fantasy world and jump straight into the Wild Wild West. Yeehaw! We're finally in the top 3. And what's better than number 3 being Wild Arms Ultra Code F, released on the PlayStation 2 in 2003. This is probably the way that a JRPG should be remade. It went from a 2D sprite-based turn-based RPG to a 3D JRPG maintaining almost the exact same gameplay with just an incredible amount of added content. from characters to dungeons to even super bosses. It also took a lot of the mechanics from Wild Arms 3 and added those in as well. Wild Arms has always been one of my favorite game series of all time, and having a remake done at this scale was amazing. I remember when I first picked up Ultra Code F. I was on vacation visiting an old friend of mine. We went to the Real Canadian Superstore. It's kind of like this grocery store here in Canada that has various departments. Electronics, hardware, so on and so forth. I, of course, being the guy that I am, wandered into the electronics department, and I saw Ultra Code F on the shelf. I was so uninformed back in the early 2000s that I didn't even know it existed. So you can just imagine the surprise on my face when I saw that there was a remake of the very first Wild Arms. It also came with 3 or 4 episodes of the Wild Arms anime, Twilight Venom, but you don't have to watch that. It's kind of awful. That being said, I did check it out. I can't suggest it. Now, if we could only get something done in this style with Wild Arms 2, I feel like I remember that there was a Wild Arms 2 remake called Another Code F being previewed in a gaming magazine, but I actually took a look around the internet and I couldn't find anything about this. I don't know if it even actually existed or if I just dreamed it up. Oh well, at least Ultra Code F exists, and it's amazing in every sense of the word. Now, Wild Arms might have blended the idea of a Western into a JRPG, but how about we jump into one of the greatest character-driven JRPGs ever created?
Have a taste of this!
We're traveling to the Blue Star for number 2. Lunar 2 Eternal Blue, originally released in 1994 for the Sega CD. Of course, I didn't get the opportunity to play it until the complete version was released for the PlayStation. I've talked about Lunar and Lunar 2 several times on this channel. I've reviewed the collection recently, and I love the game just as much as when I first played it. I adore the Lunar series as a whole, but the second game is by far my favorite. I can't even explain why I love Lunar 2 so much. It could be the soundtrack, it could be the difficulty or gameplay, but it's most likely due to some of the most lovable characters ever seen in a JRPG. I'm sure the wacky and hilarious working designs translation has something to do with it as well. Lunar 2 Eternal Blue has everything I would ever ask for in a JRPG, and it puts it all together so perfectly. I've always been a sucker for cute romantic love stories in JRPGs, and with Hiro and Lucia's relationship, it just made me smile every step of the way. This, accompanied with the highs and lows of the story that involve both of them, is just such a good experience. It's really hard to pinpoint what makes Lunar 2 so special, but if I had to compare it to anything, I would compare it to Final Fantasy X if it had this Saturday morning cartoon vibe to it. If you decide to play one JRPG from today's list, make it this one. And if you're unsure on the Lunar franchise, check out my review of the HD collection after you're done here. But now that we're done with deep emotion, let's finish off today's list with a JRPG that proves that games can be both epic and fun. How ironic is it that the number 1 spot is also the first Tales game that I ever played? Tales of Eternia, also known as Tales of Destiny 2, originally released on the PlayStation in 2000. So why would Tales of Eternia be my number 1 spot? Sure, it's good, but is it number 1 good? Well, as far as I'm concerned, yes it is. Tales of Eternia is probably one of the most important games to me personally, because not only was it amazing, but it introduced me to what remains one of my favorite JRPG series of all time. Just a bunch of friends traveling the world together as they try to prevent certain doom, accompanied by a real-time linear motion battle system was as fast as it was flashy. To this day, of all the Tales games released, it remains one of my favorite battle systems in the series. It might seem a bit basic by today's standards, but it just felt incredibly smooth and satisfying to land those high hit combos. This was actually one of the very first games I reviewed on the channel, and one of the main reasons I started my channel was to review the entire Tales franchise. Now that series is slowly and still in process, so if you want to check out that series, maybe take a look at that after you're done with today's video. If you haven't had a chance to play Tales of Eternia, you need to give it a shot. Unfortunately, it's not available on any modern consoles, so you need a PlayStation or a PlayStation Portable. Personally, I am hoping that Bandai Namco considers doing a classic Tales of collection and includes Tales of Eternia so the world can get another chance to play this amazing game. So there you have it, 10 of the very best retro JRPGs you will ever play. What's your favorite retro JRPG? Let me know in the comments below. I'm looking forward to seeing all the different opinions. And if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and before you head off, why not check out one more video? Thanks for watching, and until next week's video, everyone, have a wonderful day.